Before the flood, before the judgment, before even the name of Noah echoed through the valleys of the damned, there existed something the world was never meant to see. The Nephilim. Not legends, not myths whispered around dying fires, real. Their footprints carved into stone, their bloodlines woven through flesh, their hunger insatiable. This is the account of divine blood spilled into mortal veins, of angels who fell for beauty, of giants who walked as gods, and the reckoning that washed the earth clean. But nothing stays buried forever. Long before the waters rose, before the sky wept judgment, the world existed in a fragile balance. Humanity spread across the earth, filling valleys and plains, building simple homes, tending flocks, living beneath a heaven that watched in silence. The angels assigned to guard them observed from realms of light, their duties clear, their purpose pure, to watch, to protect, never to interfere. But watching became longing. The daughters of men moved through their days, unaware that celestial eyes followed their every step. They laughed by rivers, danced under moonlight, carried water from wells with grace that was never meant to captivate immortal beings. Yet it did. One watcher spoke what others dared not say aloud. "Have you seen them?" His voice trembled with something ancient beings were never meant to feel. How the light catches in their hair, how fragile they are, and yet how beautiful. Silence answered him, but it was the silence of agreement, the silence of shared corruption beginning to root. In the days when the earth was still young and silence covered the land like a shroud, the heavens held their breath. The sons of God, those luminous beings tasked with watching over humanity, stood at the edge of an unspeakable decision. They saw the daughters of men, and they desired, not with the gentle affection of guardians, but with a hunger that twisted their purpose into rebellion. Mount Hermon rose from the earth like a throne of judgment, its peak piercing the clouds where mortal eyes could not reach. Snow crowned its summit even in summer. Winds howled around its slopes like warnings no one would heed. It was there, on that cursed summit, that 200 watchers gathered under a sky heavy with foreboding. The air itself seemed to thicken as they assembled, each one arriving in silence, their forms shimmering between flesh and spirit. They had walked in the courts of heaven. They had sung in the presence of the Almighty. Now they stood on the threshold of damnation. Semjaza stood among them, trembling, not from cold, from doubt. His light flickered like a dying star. Once he had been radiant, his voice carrying hymns that made creation itself rejoice. But desire had poisoned him, turning worship into rebellion, obedience into hunger. "I fear," he said, his voice breaking the silence, "that I alone will bear the weight of this sin, that you will retreat when the moment comes, and I will stand condemned before the throne while you hide in holy places." The others stepped forward, their faces illuminated by an unnatural glow that pulsed with barely contained power. Each one carried the same hunger, the same terrible longing that had brought them to this forsaken peak. One by one they raised their voices in unison, sealing their fate with words that would echo through eternity. "We swear by binding oaths," they declared, their voices merging into a single chord of defiance. "We curse ourselves if we retreat. We invoke judgment upon our own heads, Let the burden fall upon us all, equally. The mountain itself shuddered. In the courts of heaven, books were opened, names were marked, and the machinery of judgment began its slow, inevitable turn. And so they descended. When their feet touched the soil of the mortal realm, the ground itself recoiled. Trees bent away from their presence, branches curling inward as if trying to hide. The air grew thick, suffocating, as if creation knew that something sacred had been violated. Animals fled. Birds ceased their songs. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. They walked among humanity with faces too beautiful to behold, with voices that commanded worship without speaking a word, with hands that could shape the world itself. The first village they entered fell silent. Children stopped playing. Women dropped their water jars. Men fell to their knees, unable to comprehend what stood before them. "Who are you?" an elder whispered, his voice barely audible. The watchers smiled, and they took wives, not with ceremonies, not with vows, not with the customs of men. They took. Some women went willingly, seduced by beauty beyond human comprehension. Others were claimed by force, dragged from their homes as their families watched in helpless terror. The watchers spoke of love, but what they called love was possession. What they called union was corruption. What they called blessing was the seed of the world's destruction. From these unions came children, but they were not children. They were Nephilim. The first birth nearly killed the mother. She screamed for 3 days, her body breaking under the weight of what grew inside her. The midwives fled, terrified by the sounds coming from within, sounds that were not entirely human. When the child finally emerged, silence fell. It was the size of a grown man. Its eyes opened immediately, burning with intelligence that should not exist in an infant. When it cried, windows shattered. When it reached for its mother, its tiny fingers left bruises deep as brands. Within a week, it could walk. Within a month, it could speak. Within a year, it stood taller than the tallest warrior. And this was only the first. At first, the earth marveled. Giants towered over the tallest men, their shadows stretching across entire villages like eclipses. Their strength could split mountains with bare hands. Their voices shook the foundations of cities not yet built. They learned faster than mortals. They grew stronger with each passing day. They remembered everything they saw, absorbing knowledge like dry earth absorbs rain. Mothers looked upon them with equal parts awe and terror. Warriors bowed before them, offering tribute and servitude. Kings surrendered their thrones without a single blade drawn, reasoning that resistance was futile against beings who could tear through stone walls as if they were cloth. The Nephilim became rulers, warlords, gods in flesh. They built cities that defied natural law, towers that climbed toward heaven as if to mock the realm their fathers had abandoned. They established kingdoms where they were worshipped as divine. Temples rose in their honor. Sacrifices were made to appease them. Prayers were spoken to their names. For a time they brought order, but reverence soon turned to horror. Their hunger was never satisfied. First, they devoured the harvests, stripping fields bare in a single night. Entire granaries built to feed thousands for a year would be emptied to feed a single Nephilim for a week. Farmers worked until their hands bled, only to watch their crops disappear into mouths that never stopped consuming. Then they turned to the flocks, slaughtering entire herds, leaving nothing but blood-soaked earth and silence. Shepherds wept over the carcasses of animals they had raised from birth, now torn apart for a single meal. And when even that was not enough, they turned on humanity itself. The first reports came from outlying villages. "They took our children," a woman sobbed, clutching the torn fabric of her daughter's dress. Said they needed food. "Our sons tried to fight," a man whispered, his eyes hollow. "They laughed while..." He could not finish. The screams of the innocent rose like smoke toward heaven, but heaven did not answer, not yet. The watchers, drunk on their power and blind to the consequences, began revealing secrets never meant for mortal minds. Azazel, most brazen among the fallen, gathered men around him like students before a master. "You live in fear," he told them, his voice smooth as poisoned honey. "You cower before beasts. You hide from your enemies. I will show you how to rise above." He taught them to forge weapons from metals torn from the earth. Swords that could cleave through bone, spears that could pierce armor, shields that reflected the sun like mirrors of death. He showed them how to make breastplates and ornaments, how to beautify warfare, how to make killing an art. Others whispered the movements of the stars, teaching astrology and divination, bending time and fate to human will. They revealed the secrets of roots and herbs, not for healing, but for potions and poisons and enchantments. They taught women to paint their faces with crushed minerals and coal, adorning themselves in ways that mirrored the fallen, transforming beauty into seduction, innocence into manipulation. Men learned to inscribe symbols into stone and flesh, calling upon powers they did not understand, summoning forces that should have remained sealed. Sorcery, enchantments, the manipulation of life itself. The knowledge spread like disease. The natural order collapsed. Animals began mating across species, birthing abominations that crawled through the wilderness on legs that bent in impossible directions. Creatures with too many eyes, too many mouths, no place in creation. The earth groaned beneath the weight of corruption, its soil turning sour, its waters running dark. Madness seized the minds of men. Violence became worship. And in the high courts of heaven, silence finally broke. The archangels gathered before the throne, their faces grave. Michael, commander of heaven's armies, spoke first. "The earth cries out, Lord. The blood of the innocent soaks the ground. The watchers have revealed what was forbidden. The Nephilim devour your creation." Raphael stepped forward. The corruption spreads. Even the animals are defiled. If this continues, he did not finish. He did not need to. Gabriel and Uriel stood silent, their wings folded, their heads bowed. They knew what was coming. The Almighty spoke, and his voice was thunder and earthquake and the cracking of the cosmos itself. "My spirit will not contend with man forever," he declared, "for he too is flesh. His days shall be 120 years. 120 years. Time to repent, time to turn back, time to choose." But even as the decree echoed through the heavenly realms, all knew the truth. Humanity would not repent. The watchers would not retreat. The Nephilim would not cease. Judgment was not merely coming, it was inevitable. The angels trembled, not from fear of punishment, but from the weight of what was coming. Total annihilation. Among the chaos walked a man unlike any other, Enoch. He did not build towers like the Nephilim. He did not chase power like the corrupted. He did not bow before the fallen or tremble before giants. He walked with God. While nations fell to their knees before beings who claimed divinity, Enoch stood upright. While humanity embraced forbidden knowledge like children playing with fire, he sought only truth. He was a prophet in an age that had forgotten prophecy, a voice of warning in a world deaf to wisdom, a single candle in darkness absolute. One day, as he wandered through the ruins of a city destroyed by the Nephilim's endless wars, a vision seized him with the force of a physical blow. The ground beneath his feet became glass. The sky above split open like torn fabric. And he saw mountains crumble into dust, their peaks toppling like children's toys. He saw the heavens themselves convulse, stars falling like rain, constellations torn apart. He saw fire descend from above and rise from below, meeting in the middle, consuming everything between. He saw water covering the earth, swallowing cities, drowning valleys, rising higher than the tallest peaks. He saw the Nephilim running, their massive forms dwarfed by the apocalypse that pursued them. He saw the watchers in chains, dragged down into abysses darker than night, deeper than any pit in the world. And he heard a voice that made his bones tremble. "Go," it commanded. "Warn them. Tell them what is coming. Give them time to turn. And when they refuse, let them know they chose their fate." Enoch traveled to every corner of the corrupted world, his feet carrying him to places where no righteous man had walked in generations. He entered the courts of the Nephilim, standing small and fragile before beings 3 times his height. "You were not meant to exist," he declared, his voice steady despite the terror that gripped his heart. "Your fathers fell from grace. Your mothers were violated. You are children of rebellion, and your days are numbered." The giants laughed. They laughed until the halls shook, until the servants cowered, until Enoch himself wondered if he would leave alive. But he did not waver. "Laugh now," he said quietly. "Weep later." He went to the temples where the watchers were worshipped, where incense burned in their honor, where priests offered sacrifices to beings who had no right to receive them. "You have defiled the earth," he cried, his voice rising above the chants and drums. "You who were holy have become cursed. You who stood in the presence of the Most High now grovel in the dirt of your own making. The Almighty has seen your deeds, and He will not relent." Some struck him, some threatened him, some tried to drag him away to be killed. But each time, something stopped them, an invisible hand, an inexplicable fear, the sense that this small, weak man carried protection they could not breach. The watchers, hearing his words through intermediaries, felt something they had not known since their rebellion. Fear. They gathered in secret, their glorious forms now hunched with dread, their voices no longer commanding but pleading. "We must send word to the prophet," Semjaza said, his once radiant face now haggard. Perhaps if we ask forgiveness." "There is no forgiveness for what we have done," another whispered. "We abandoned heaven. We violated creation. We destroyed the order itself. Then let us beg, Semjaza shouted. Let us send petitions. Let us ask the prophet to intercede. And so they did. They scrawled desperate messages on scrolls, their hands shaking. They sent messengers to find Enoch, to beg him, to plead with him to carry their words to the throne they had forsaken. Enoch, moved by pity despite their crimes, took the scrolls. He carried them in his hands as he was lifted from the earth, transported beyond the veil of the physical world, ascending through realms of fire and ice, through halls of crystal and rivers of light, until he stood before the throne itself. The presence of the Almighty was unbearable, glory beyond description, light that burned without consuming, love and justice in perfect, terrible balance. Enoch fell to his face. "Speak," the voice said. "Lord," Enoch whispered, his voice breaking. "The watchers send their pleas. They beg for mercy. They ask for forgiveness. Silence." The word was not harsh, but it was final. "Let the watchers know," God said, "that there will be no peace for them. Their sons will be destroyed before their eyes. They will watch everything they built turn to ash and dust. And then they will be bound in darkness, imprisoned in the deepest places of the earth, until the day of final judgment when all accounts are settled and all rebellions are crushed." Enoch wept, not for the watchers, but for what was to come. When he returned to earth, his face was pale, his hands empty of hope. The watchers crowded around him, desperate for good news. "What did he say?" they demanded. "Will he forgive us? Will he spare our sons? Will he—" "There will be no peace for you," Enoch said, his voice barely a whisper. The words fell like stones into water. Silent. "Your sons will be destroyed," Enoch continued, each word an agony to speak. "You will be bound in darkness. You will remain there until the end of all things. This is the judgment. This is the decree. This is what you have earned." The watchers wept. Some fell to their knees, tearing at their garments. Others raged, cursing the heavens, cursing humanity, cursing themselves. But their tears changed nothing. Their rage changed nothing. The machinery of judgment had already begun to turn. The Nephilim, oblivious to their approaching doom, continued their reign of terror. They warred among themselves, brother against brother, each seeking dominance over the ruins of the world. Blood soaked the valleys, bones piled higher than the walls of their cities. The earth itself seemed to cry out for relief. And then the waters came. Among the descendants of Enoch lived a man named Noah, righteous, blameless, unshaken. While the world celebrated violence, Noah tended his fields in silence. While humanity bowed to the Nephilim, Noah looked only to heaven. One night, as he rested beneath the stars, light descended upon him. "The end of all flesh has come before me," God said. "The earth is filled with violence because of them. Make yourself an ark." Noah did not question, did not hesitate. He began to build. For decades, the massive vessel took shape. 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, 30 cubits high. A fortress against the coming storm. People gathered to mock him. "Where is your flood, old man? Why do you waste your strength on wood and pitch? The Nephilim will crush your ark before a single drop falls." But Noah worked in silence, his faith unwavering. In the heavens, 4 archangels stood before the throne of God, receiving their final commands. Michael was sent to bind the Watchers. Raphael descended to capture Azazel, dragging him to the darkest abyss and sealing him beneath jagged stones. Gabriel was tasked with sowing discord among the Nephilim, turning their pride into their destruction. Uriel carried the warning of judgment to the last faithful remnants of humanity. The machinery of divine justice began to turn. The Watchers were hunted. One by one, they were torn from their palaces and thrones, stripped of their glory, and cast into pits of eternal darkness. Their cries echoed through the underworld, but no one answered. The Nephilim, sensing something amiss, grew desperate. They fought each other with renewed savagery, believing that dominance would save them. It would not. The sky darkened. Clouds gathered like vultures over Carrion, blotting out the sun. Thunder rolled across the heavens, shaking the foundations of mountains. And then, the first drops fell. Not gentle rain, a deluge. The fountains of the deep exploded upward, splitting the earth like rotten fruit. Water gushed from crevices, from valleys, from places where no water had ever been. The heavens opened, pouring torrents upon the world, as if the sky itself had been ripped apart. The Nephilim, so confident in their strength, ran. They climbed mountains. They built towers. They clawed at stone, desperate to rise above the rising tide. But the water did not stop. One giant, known as Gilgamesh, roared defiance at the heavens. "Is this your answer?" he screamed. "We who loved humanity are now cast aside." His voice was swallowed by thunder. He tried to swim, his massive arms cutting through the water like oars. But even giants tire, and the depths are patient. One by one, the Nephilim disappeared beneath the surface. Their screams faded, their cities drowned, their names were erased. For 40 days and 40 nights, the rain fell. Every living thing that walked the earth perished, except those sheltered within the ark. And in the darkness below, chained in eternal night, the Watchers listened to the silence. Their sons were gone. When the waters receded, Noah stepped onto a world transformed. Mud, silence, emptiness, no towers, no giants, no trace of the corruption that had consumed the world. He built an altar with trembling hands, offering sacrifice to the God who had preserved him. And the heavens responded with a sign. An arc of light stretched across the sky, touching both earth and cloud, a promise written in color. "Never again," God said, "never again will I destroy the earth with water. This is the covenant between me and all flesh." The rainbow shimmered like hope, and for a time, the world was clean. But the bloodline of the Nephilim was not entirely erased. Fragments, echoes, remnants. In the land of Canaan, among the descendants of Ham, whispers began. Giants walked again, not as tall as their forefathers, not as mighty, but giants nonetheless. The Anakim rose in the southern hills, their fortresses carved into cliffs. The Rephaim ruled Bashan, their king Og sleeping in a bed of iron 9 cubits long. The Emim, the Zamzumim, the shadow of the past, stretched across the promised land, like a stain that would not wash away. When Moses sent spies into Canaan, they returned trembling. "We saw the sons of Anak," they reported, "descendants of the Nephilim. We were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and in theirs." Fear gripped Israel, but 2 men stood apart, Joshua, Caleb. "Do not fear them," they said. "The Lord is with us. They will fall like bread into our hands." The people did not believe. And so an entire generation died in the wilderness, never seeing the fulfillment of the promise. But their children would. Under Joshua's command, Israel crossed the Jordan. The walls of Jericho fell without a single blade drawn. The cities of the Anakim were stormed, their defenders cut down despite their size. Hebron fell, Debir fell, Anab fell. The bloodline of the Nephilim was being severed, one city at a time. But the greatest test still lay ahead. In the land of the Philistines, a champion emerged, Goliath of Gath, 9 feet tall, bronze armor gleaming like the scales of a serpent, a spear whose shaft was thick as a weaver's beam. For 40 days, he stood in the valley of Elah, mocking the armies of Israel. "Send me a man," he roared. "If he defeats me, we will be your servants. But if I prevail, you will serve us." Not a single warrior stepped forward. King Saul, the tallest man in Israel, remained in his tent. Fear paralyzed the chosen people, until a shepherd boy arrived with bread for his brothers. David was small, unarmored, untrained in war, but his eyes saw what others could not. "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine," he asked, "that he should defy the armies of the living God?" The soldiers laughed. His brothers mocked him, but David walked toward the valley. Goliath sneered. "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" David did not flinch. "You come against me with sword and spear," he said. "But I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." He reached into his pouch, drew a single stone, placed it in his sling, and released. The stone flew, a whisper of wind, a crack like breaking bone. Goliath's knees buckled. The giant fell forward, his face slamming into the earth with the weight of all his pride. David ran forward, seized Goliath's own sword, and with one stroke severed the head from the body. The Philistine army fled in terror. The shadow of the Nephilim trembled. David would become king, and under his reign, the last remnants of the giant bloodline would fall. Ishbi-Benob, wielding a spear of 300 shekels of bronze, was slain by Abishai. Saph the giant fell to Sibbecai, the Hushathite. Lami, brother of Goliath, was killed by Elhanan, and a nameless giant with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in total, was struck down by Jonathan, son of David's brother. One by one, the bloodline was severed. The curse was lifted. The earth began to heal. But the memory remained. In every ancient ruin, in every towering stone, in every tale of giants that mothers whisper to their children in the dark. The Nephilim are gone, their cities buried, their names forgotten, their spirits bound. Yet the question lingers in the shadows of sacred texts and forbidden scrolls. What if fragments of that bloodline still pulse through hidden veins? What if the corruption was never fully cleansed, only buried deeper? The war between heaven and earth is not finished. The Watchers still rage in their chains, awaiting the final day. The giants may have fallen, but their legacy echoes in ways we cannot see. And somewhere, in the places where light does not reach, the ancient hunger stirs, waiting. Because this was never just about giants. It was about rebellion, about corruption, about the price of defying the divine order. And that battle continues still. If this story stirred something in you, If you felt the weight of what was lost and what remains, then stay with us. There are other names, other mysteries buried in the ancient texts, stories the world forgot, truths hidden in plain sight, and we're only beginning to uncover them. The bloodline may be broken, but the war is far from over.